gather round, y'all, and settle down, and we'll discuss the rating of frames. This is Frame Rate. I'm one of your hosts, Michael Swaim.
I'm the other one. I'm the other host, Abe Epperson.
Yeah, that's right, Epperson. Get that in there. And that was my attempt at a normal, no muss, no fuss, basic podcast intro. How'd I do? Write in, long form, but by hand, write letters to us.
I hated it.
It was awful. But this is indeed Frame Rate, where we rate frames. And as usual, we have a very, very special guest with us. Please holler, special guest, now.
Hello. Hi. Hark. Verily. I felt like the intro was kind of medieval, and we should keep going with that or something.
That's a little fanciful. Yeah.
Gather ye round and hear of the frames.
Bards will sing tales evermore of Lydia Bugg. Welcome, Lydia. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Classiest podcast.
Classiest possible guest we could have had on the classiest possible podcast. And yeah, we're fittingly, for such a fancy intro, we're discussing 1989's The Wizard. You can't get fancier than that.
Yeah, more medieval. It's like it's the theme. You did a great intro.
Yeah. I guess wizards are technically or often associated with medievalness, but not this movie. People listening probably are familiar, unless you're, I guess, younger than us. But, well, Lydia, you're younger than us. I know that because I listen to Dog Zone, and they love to point out the age gap. I don't know why, but had you seen The Wizard before?
No, I'd heard of it. And like the age gap isn't that big. It's like 8 years, but somehow we grew up in different universes,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was listening to
your
take on Arnold Schwarzenegger was very different than Sean and Robert's.
Yes.
So it's not negligible, but you were aware of The Wizard surely through like pop culture osmosis, right?
Yeah, I think if I weren't like a person who writes about weird pop culture for a living, I might not be aware of it, but you kind of can't miss the failed Power Glove movie. Like it's famously
That's
bad.
right. Ding, ding, ding. It's the failed Power Glove movie, and our first introduction, or one of the first major swings, from Fred Savage, who of course is on the tip of everyone's tongues these days for all the fabulous work he does to this day. I didn't mean to dig at Fred Savage so hard just then. Abe, you also have a unique relationship to The Wizard, right? I just learned this last night when we were chatting.
Yeah, I grew up with this one. I was a big shill for this. I basically had the VHS tape, and I just watched that thing into the ground. I don't know what it was about this movie. It just really appealed to me.
Yeah, for me it was The Labyrinth on Laserdisc. I played that over and over until the glue started to dissolve. Lydia, did you have we'll get into The Wizard, but did you have like a movie you watched more than any other movie as like a 9, 10, 11-year-old?
Yeah, I think I was a little bit younger, but I know I watched Mary Poppins so many times that my parents took it away and told me that it broke and that it could never be fixed.
Nice. That's always a good sign.
There was a penguin named Lydia in it, and I think that's the only thing that I liked about it was that once every hour and a half I got to hear my name.
Another copy cannot be acquired. Like, I'm sorry. This was the only copy.
I think for me, it was like just looking at Beau Bridges in this movie. I was just captivated as a young boy.
Yeah. Yeah. Beau Bridges, father of Jeff Bridges. Am I getting that right?
No, brother, right?
Brother?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the movie's not as old as I'm trying to make it out to be. But interesting, because I'm a huge Jeff Bridges fan, and I was like, oh, yeah, the other Bridges. Interesting. I can kind of see the shadow of Jeff's face in there.
Yes.
And before we get too far into The Wizard itself, let's thank Nerd Numbers, who patronized us at the Pick the Flick tier. Thank you so much, Nerd Numbers, for bringing this film to our attention, I guess. I mean, we knew about it, but as I was saying right before we started rolling, there's a lot more to comment on than I thought there would be. I was worried it would be one of those like movies where we're just like, yeah, it was good. But no, there's a lot of weird like cultural artifacts in this film.
That's right.
Yeah, so let's dive in. We usually start by throwing it to our guest right away. You had not seen it before, so Lydia, what was your just raw take on The Wizard. What stood out to you?
I just thought, I can't believe that blatant, like, product placement this blatant could pass as a movie. Like, I kept thinking, what if the product they were talking about was like Omaha steaks, and they just kept stopping to the movie to be like, we have to quickly eat some delicious Omaha steaks for like 10 minutes. Like, it wasn't well put into the movie all the time, I felt like.
No,
Baby's first product placement. Yeah. And it's amazing that it kind of shows what capitalistic whores we've always been. I don't know. It's rudimentary product placement, but boy, it sure is woven in throughout the whole thing. I honestly, there were moments where I think this is just a modern sensibility, but I was like, you could have crammed more Nintendo in there. Like at Video Game Armageddon, I expected there to be more product placement, to be honest.
Yeah, I expected more logos that like said Nintendo or Nintendo Power would, have a... Although Nintendo Power did have a like marketing thing that they did for this movie. I don't know about you guys. In my rewatch, I stood up from my chair and just started chanting games several times.
It does make you want to play games, yeah.
What really clicked for me was when Beau Bridges, the dad, suddenly they wake up in the hotel room after not bonding as father and son, and he's like, now I'm addicted to the video game.
Yeah.
Which is a full-on commercial move. That is absolutely what would just happen in a Nintendo commercial. I want to point out
that in that scene, he's playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles all night, and it cuts to his score, and it's 500. So a true gamer knows that you can't have that low of a score before getting the scroll weapon.
Yeah. Well, if you're a serious NES head, there are some definite like issues with, not the least of which is that they make the Power Glove look functional, which in real life it was not very functional. But I love when at the end, Beau Bridges, by the way, it's about brothers traveling across country to compete in a video game tournament, blah, blah, blah. Everyone knows The Wizard. But I loved that at the end, Beau Bridges watching Jimmy play Super Mario Brothers 3 shouts, "Watch out for the mushrooms."
Yeah, like how does he know?
The mushrooms are not bad. You want the mushrooms.
You want the mushrooms.
Yeah.
Maybe you saying like, get those mushrooms.
Or does he think the Goombas are mushrooms?
That seems like an ad lib.
Yeah. Because he wasn't supposed to know anything about video games. So when he was yelling at the end, I'm like, why are you giving him advice? You just learned what video games are like yesterday.
Yeah, this kid is like so good at games, and you're like saying you can improve. Like, come on.
Then Fred Savage is shouting, "Find a warp, Jimmy! Find a warp! If he finds a warp, he can skip levels." And you're like, "How did you know that? That was introduced in
new
Super
game.
Mario Brothers 3, and it's a new game they've never seen before."
It's wild, man. They're wizards. It's all in the name.
They're wizards, yeah. But yeah, it basically follows the. Well, here's a real deep cut that I've mentioned in podcasts before, but I loved it. Anyone familiar with the game Willy Beamish, the video game?
No.
No.
That is a video game about a boy who runs away from home to compete in a video game tournament. So I was much more familiar with Willy Beamish than the Wizard, and I don't remember which was made when, but I just kept getting Willy Beamish flashbacks. That's not a productive avenue of conversation.
Well, I will say that it's not very... That's not a... Like, of course, that story was told multiple times over multiple media. Like, I'm a special boy and I like video games.
Yeah.
Of course.
What I find interesting and does, I think, speak to the era is that they both decided to blend that with the A-plot of running away from home, which used to be such an old saw that we were like, yeah, kids run away from home. This happens all the time. Like cartoons had truant officers and stuff in them.
Well, and it's a weird story of like this terrible family trauma that is grafted over a fun, wacky video game adventure. And it feels both like horribly overwritten. I paused the movie twice to ask my husband what the relationship of everyone was to each other, like the brothers, because we could not figure it out. There's like a death and a divorce and a remarriage and then a child death. Like
it's complex.
It's a very complex family history when you could just be like, yeah, they got divorced and that would have been fine.
Yeah, they wanted divorced dad for Beau Bridges. They also wanted it
Dick's
not to be his son, but half like his stepson.
Yeah.
It's like, there's a lot going on. I think it's because there's actually secretly like pretty regressive thoughts on like how you rear children, or like what are the social norms around rearing children, that I think that like really exposes that it has to be like your kids, but not like your kids, you know, like there's a lot of that stuff for them to get away with like wacky moments where like adults are like beating children in the street, which we see in this movie.
Yeah, there's this. So there's two guys who are just real stone cold creeps. One is Bateman, who I wish I knew the character actor's name because he always plays dicks, and he has a face where you're like, yeah, he's
casting is like, we need someone who looks like an asshole. Yeah,
yeah, and he's just an evil stepdad who doesn't care about the kid's welfare and just cares about like, get me that kid. I need that kid. He's my property. And then of course to track them down, they hire. And it's played as wacky, but my God, can we talk about Putnam?
The child kidnapper, the professional kidnapper they hired.
His job is to go around
hate kids at one point,
threatening people and being like, showing pictures of children and being like, you seen these kids? I need these kids. I want these kids. Anyone here seen some little kids? I want to grab them. Like his job is just nonsensical. Well, I can't believe it ever existed.
His whole deal is he doesn't get paid if he doesn't catch the kid. And I'm like, why did you make that pay structure for yourself? You invented this problem for you. No one is like, oh yeah, this is the typical child catcher pay structure. You don't get paid unless you catch the kid. Like, he made that up. He had to.
Oh yeah, that's a great point. Putnam could have just asked for some money up front for services rendered. Yeah. Instead, he's literally like, oh, the parents are also looking for the kids? I must foil them.
I'm going to slit their tires.
I won't get paid. Yeah.
Like, you guys are both acting like you know how hard it is to work in the child snatching, you know, like racket. Okay.
Yeah, my dad was a child snatcher. That's just the stand.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, okay, so you know, that's just the payment structure. It's unfortunate. We should have unions.
It's this whole era of like a parent-free universe, and obviously this movie actually has like multiple sets of parents. But I just mean, I also was constantly wondering, where is Haley's either parent? Like, even by the end of the movie, Haley is now treated as if she's adopted by them, or like they all drive away together.
Took Haley home with them, and I'm like, I don't think you can do that.
We get one scene. We know that her dad's a trucker, and he's just never home. And we know nothing about mom, I think.
Well, she had a gambling problem, and she's gone now.
Yeah, I think she jetted out. Yeah, exactly. So what's crazy to me is that it's kind of like I think you nailed it, Michael. It's really haunting in the way it shows all this stuff casually. And what I find not most appalling about it, but most, like, I don't know, most interesting as like an experiment of like, look at this 1989 time machine, this little time capsule, which is that it's really trusting that the audience, which is by design largely children, will see adults are unhelpful like liars who will hinder you from being sympathetic to one another. In that way, it's like Spielberg on heroin. It's really like, look at the dark side of like what happens when you don't have a nuclear family. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think it's also partially because it's transitioning between like the 80s where kids could do whatever they wanted to the 90s where you were like more well looked after. And I felt that a lot in the thing with the little sister where they were like, yeah, no one was watching the little sister, and then she like drowned. And that's like the thing that actually launches the movie, because that's what makes Jimmy so traumatized. They imply that he's like autistic or something, and then you find out that he's just extremely traumatized. And they've basically just written him off because of it. They're like, oh yeah, something's wrong with him. And it's like it's that he saw
Fred Savage is like, do you see what he does? He just sits here doing nothing. He's sick. And you're like, very clumsy handling of neurodivergence all throughout the whole thing. Also, I thought it was, I just, as not remembering that the final reveal is Super Mario Brothers 3, how much of a planned payoff would it have been if it was Tetris? Because he's constantly stacking things. He's good at stacking things.
Yeah.
Am I crazy? I thought it was going to be a Tetris reveal.
There was on the Blu-ray. There's a featurette where it talks with the director Todd Holland, who remarks that he was very scared. I think that might actually been a design of the script that was left out because the year before, Rain Man became like one of the biggest movies in America, and they were very scared of just being considered a Rain Man knockoff, even though the years don't really match up because the year that this came out, this had already been in production. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But people don't know that. They just respond to last year Rain Man came out, and this has a neurodivergent kid, and he's doing all that stuff that Rain Man was doing, right? So it's not, again, in that time, late 80s, not the greatest time for portrayal of people with autism. We never get verified that diagnosis in this movie.
No,
but
and in fact,
they're
they
clearly
treat it
going for it, though.
That like they don't treat it as if he was born with that issue. They treat it that like he saw his sister drown and then it switched on, or he's been like that ever since, which is very weird and not how it works. Yeah.
Well, and it can only have happened like 3 years ago. When you look at the picture of the sister, she's very close to his age, and he's very close to the age that he is now. So it's like, this just happened. This kid's recovering, and they're all like, oh, I don't know. So I guess he's autistic or something. Like he has some kind of neurodivergent issue, and they're all just like have accepted that, which is really weird to me.
And then they find out that he's really good at video games, and they're like, that resolves that.
Yeah.
Which is just such a weird
He went to California. That's because he's always saying California. What happens when they like drive back to Utah and he's still like California again?
Yeah.
You know, they're like, I guess we have to live there.
Amazing to me that how clearly the whole thing is obviously shot in California. I don't know. Just as someone who's driven up and down Southern California repeatedly throughout my life, when that opening shot that is just an abandoned child walking on the side of the road saying California and getting picked up by the cops, which because it's the 80s goes better than it would like in modern day. I'm like, you're in California, bro. You're clearly in California. This whole thing is in California. Like, you're saving money to the point that you're shooting on the Universal Studios backlot, and you have an action sequence that's the tram tour at Universal Studios. I doubt that you went to Ohio or wherever they're supposed to be from, Oklahoma, to actually shoot this. I didn't look it up, but I highly doubt it.
And they were like at the Vasquez Rocks at one point, right? From Star Trek. I thought I...
Yeah, it looked like it was, yeah.
Well, and then the resolve for Jimmy, or Jimmy/Jenny, is that he takes them to a famous, like, tourist trap side of the road attraction with a bunch of concrete dinosaurs.
Cabazon dinosaurs, which in inland Southern California, yeah.
Yeah, and leaves her picture there, which Fred Savage translates for the family. He's like, I guess he just wanted to say goodbye. He's fine now. We can leave. But also interesting point, just because it's all about video games. I'm pretty positive that's the same tourist trap that Fallout New Vegas based a very particular area on. Where
it was
you snipe someone from the mouth of the T-Rex, if I recall, in that game.
I mean, it was made huge in Pee-wee's Big Adventure a few years before this came out.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
This is in Pee-wee's, yeah. Hey, you want to hear an amazing fact about the Cabazon dinosaurs?
Yes.
Sure.
Well, the creator of it died, and it went to some
fascinating
other people group, and they turned it into a creationist museum.
Oh, boo.
So you walk into these dinosaurs, and you learn about how, like, Adam and Eve were like riding dinosaurs and stuff.
That's amazing. See, things Thank God that we're no longer as backwards as we were in 1989.
Yeah.
We've come so far.
We're so good.
Anyway,
We're
you
so
seen these
good.
kids? I gotta snatch these kids.
Yeah. I hate kids.
Did you notice when he finds the kids in the casino and Haley yells, "He touched my breast," which is like, yeah, that's the defense there. That's obviously like that's what I was worried about the whole time is that Putnam's that kind of creep. But she banks off that and the cops come and drag him out. No one follows up with the kids.
Yeah, well, and he was actively like kidnapping a child. He's dragging a child out of this arcade and everyone's letting him. And then she yells, "He touched my breast." And they rip the child out of his hands. They're like, "Hey, quit kidnapping that kid. This guy's a pervert." Like, they suddenly become upset about it and tear them apart at that moment. And I'm like, nobody was
That's what they needed, yeah.
Don't drag this screaming kid out of here before that.
That's what I think. It's like it's not that good of a movie because it doesn't give like any answer to this stuff or any like way out. It just shows what's going on. But that's almost brilliant to show like the concept that we're like we see a child being like grabbed by like an adult
professional
man.
Child snatcher. Yes.
Yeah, and we're like, this is all fine. It's probably his father, you know, and this is like discipline or something like that. But then you're like, oh, by the way, that's not that kid's father, or that's not that kid's like guardian. Yeah, and it's suddenly like, oh, now then that's terrible, which rightfully so. But it's like pointing out like the whole like hypocrisy of like when we trust kids versus not, which is very frustrating for kids, you know, as we've all been. And it's just like, okay, that's kind of where the point of the view of the movie is. That's actually kind of cool for something that wouldn't usually talk about this. Remember, this is an ad. You know, why are they even talking about the loose complacency of exposing children to violence and abuse from adults? Like, why is that even in the conversation? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it is. It just speaks to how parenting has changed over time, right? It was a free range kid environment and everyone like, because it's an ad and because, you know, deep in your heart, the wizard is not trying to say anything. Like the movie The Wizard is not trying to comment on society. I think it's almost a great way to get to know like what the social mores of that time were, because it's not trying to ruffle feathers. It's depicting basic lowest common denominator shit. And I guess at that time it was normal for you to just like be 12 and make out with your, you know, another 12-year-old on the roof of the RV with no parents anywhere for miles and no one cares and this is all fine.
Where you hitchhike and you're riding in the back of a truck and some twangy banjo music plays over two grown men who rob and relentlessly assault
the guys
you.
that rob them.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's like so close to a scene that ends with the children dead in a ditch that it's like amazing that it is in the movie. Yeah.
Right.
Really weird.
That and the guys that like beat them up and chase them in their truck. Like, all very dangerous stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's wild stuff.
Wild stuff. Speaking of wild, how about that extra, the featured extra at the pool, who is a very old man in a Speedo, one sock, and a trucker hat.
Yeah, I wrote that down too.
I'm surprised you mentioned that featured cameo. Did you not see the part of Lucas being the guy with the power glove? His gang at the end of the movie? Tobey Maguire with a mullet. Yeah, little baby Maguire with a mullet.
I did not notice that at all.
Yeah, he's just standing there. He's a tiny little Goomba who watches Lucas and he's like, yeah, you're cool, Lucas.
Is he Dork Lips?
No.
No,
okay. Because at one point Lucas says, hey, Dork Lips, do something useful and get me a cold drink. And I'm going to work that into my lexicon.
Dork Lips was not long for this world. I don't think he made it to LA. Like he has Lucas has a sliding scale of like cronies. In fact, at the beginning of the competition, Tobey Maguire isn't there. There's a scene where we meet Lucas and he's got some, you know, of his nerds behind him. And then at the end of the competition, you see Tobey Maguire. So he's just like accruing kids.
He's got nerd numbers.
You could tell that the writers really struggled with kid insults because there was door clips, and then at one point the bad guy called a kid fruit fly.
Yeah, that's
Buzz off,
extremely
fruit fly. Yeah, it's like
extremely my
that's
shit.
like hard-boiled detective 40s slang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, fruit fly, kick rocks. How did Lucas? My question is, because Lucas is from Nevada and came here for this. I guess he's rich because he has 97 games, which he's very particular about.
Yeah.
He's like the richest kid in the land.
But my question is, did he bring a gaggle of kids with him to support him, or is he so bad that wherever he goes, he like attracts a flock of cronies?
I think it's attraction.
It's the
what do you
latter,
think,
for
Lydia?
sure. They're orbiting him.
I love that. That kids just see Lucas and they're like, "Yeah, dude."
God.
Yeah.
I know it's a meme, but it never comes back enough. The I love the power glove. It's so bad.
So bad. Yeah.
Yeah. I just as I watched it, I decided that that's going to be my response anytime anyone asks me mouse or keyboard versus controller. Just because, god damn that delivery. God damn, Lucas, you're so fucking cool.
He's so bad.
He's so bad.
He's so bad, dude.
You can tell because of all the Vision branded shit that he wears. Vision was. This is a really weird nitpick, but Vision was, I wonder if they paid any amount of money toward the production of this film or if they were just like the popular cool kid brand at the time, because if you look for it, there's Vision stuff all throughout, almost as much as there is Nintendo stuff, which struck me as odd. Speaking of the Power Glove being bad, I just want to give the little spiel for anyone who's not aware that like, the Power Glove sucked. It was terrible. Everyone agrees. It was basically a thing you wore on your forearm that had the NES controller sewn into it. Plus, the promise was that it had motion controls. It was one of the first things with motion controls. And of course, Nintendo now is famous for like, they're the one console
peripherals
gaming thing that will do weird stuff with every time they come out with a new thing, they're like, it works like this now. It has the Wii wand and you got to wave it around, or it has the Switch and it has a dock and all this crap.
Yeah.
But this was like their first foray into that, and it was based on this technology that had like something like 32 or 64 positions it could measure in space and all
Wasn't
this
it like
stuff.
Mercury based or some like archaic shit?
Well, originally the good version, but then Nintendo saw it and was like, we're going to make a mass-produced, marketable, like simple to make version of this technology. I forget what it was. It was used by, I don't know, the military or scientists or something, but they're like, let's make it for gaming. And the way they made it cheap is instead of having like gold filaments or mercury or whatever it was, because they couldn't do that on a mass scale, they used conductive ink. Which, if you can imagine, rubbed off really fast. And the NES could only process up to 1 byte of locational data at a time. So instead of 64 positions or whatever, it had 4 or 8. I'm fudging all the numbers, but basically they took like cutting edge technology and made it intentionally very crappy so that it could be cheaply produced. And man, there was a glut of this stuff at the time. Like, I was a Sega kid, so I had the Sega equivalent, which was this ring that you put on the ground that shot LED lights up vertically, and it would measure when you interacted with the light. So in the commercial, it made it seem like if you're playing Street Fighter, you're actually punching and kicking and your character punches and kicks. In reality, you are squatting and holding your hands over various lights to like press A. It's almost like playing Twister. Like to press A, put your hand here. To press B, put your hand here. And the Power Glove was very similar. In this movie, we see Lucas controlling a car as if he's steering. And that's basically
just by slight,
it's the only use case that works. Like otherwise, you're trying to play Super Mario Brothers by like tilting your hand to the right to make him go to the right.
So it actually did work the way they showed
this
in the movie, because I wondered if they cut a bunch of it out because it's only really in one scene and the villain uses it. I thought it was like a really weird way to deploy it, and I wondered if like it was so bad that they had to cut other instances of it in the movie or something.
I don't know. I think all it needed was, I think plot-wise, all you needed to do is show how, like, cool and cutting edge he is, and that's done with one appearance of it. I actually think that you can tell when he actually does cut. There's an over-the-shoulder shot of him like angling his wrist and driving the car, and you can tell that it's a little latent. Like the actor clearly knew. They have pre-played footage, and he learned the role of the tape because he's late a few times. So it's like definitely when they shot it, they didn't care to like plug in a power glove at any point.
And by all reports from the era, it did not work. I mean, you can look at reviews of the power glove from the time, and it was a piece of shit. I gotta say, I thought I love the power glove is so bad is obviously highly mimetic and great. I thought the follow-up line was just as flabbergasting, which was Fred Savage saying, yeah, well, just keep your power gloves off her, pal. And you're like, that's the first inkling that he likes Haley? Like, it came out of nowhere, man.
Right. No, did anyone make an advance? Like, it's also just like out of nowhere. You know, like this kid's just like all about this power glove, and he's like, stop being a creep, man.
Yeah, like he wasn't gonna hit on her, and then Fred Savage said that, and then on the way out, he's like, hey, come here. I'm gonna hit on you now. I've decided.
I'm gonna hit on you. Yeah.
It just occurred to me that that's true. Fred Savage brought it in. And to Lydia's point, it would have made total sense if Jimmy won at the end using the power glove.
Yes.
That seems like a more fitting
That's what
thing.
I was waiting for. Right. Like, of course, it's going to come down to them using the power gloves, and that's why it's the Power Glove movie. And then it was like, nope, Mario 3. Okay.
Makes me wonder if it's really more the Super Mario Brothers 3 movie, because that does deserve to get shilled and was a huge success. So I don't know if the power glove was just an aside or they're trying to get their cake and eat it too, but yeah, Super Mario Brothers 3 is super good.
Like the poster has Fred Savage wearing the glove and like thrusting his arm into the air, and Fred Savage doesn't touch the power glove in that movie.
Right. Yeah.
Nor is Fred Savage the one who even plays the video games.
Yeah.
Like, does he ever? We see Haley play a video game. We see Christian Slater. We see Beau Bridges. I don't think Fred Savage ever picks up a controller.
No, he hates games.
Yeah. His goal is just to get Jimmy from point A to point B. Right. And somehow I was surprised at some of the stuff they ellipsed. Like, it cuts to them after walking through the Nevada desert all day, which would fuck you up. Like, that would damage your body. And he's somehow made a roaring fire. It's just on the side of the road.
That's enormous.
I wanted to see how that happened. Yeah. Yeah, he does pretty well as like a survivalist. Let's see. Calls Haley Zelda. She says, boy, is that sexist. He says it's not sexist, it's romantic. And then he implies she might be gay, which gets her to kiss him.
Yes, that was so weird. I was like, is he hinting that he thinks she's gay? And then she's like, I'll show you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, what a weird way to do the kissing scene. And yet, I gotta say... a lot of the kids very talented for the material they were given. Like Jenny Lewis is good in this.
Yeah, Jenny Lewis. Wait, does everyone knows Jenny Lewis, right?
Yeah, from Rilo Kiley.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's crazy. This is all crazy to me.
Yeah. What a weird confluence of events this movie really is. Yeah, it's just an astounding nexus of random nonsense.
Fred Savage and Jenny Lewis.
Yeah.
What a weird... And Beau Bridges and Christian Slater. We haven't really even talked about Christian Slater.
Yeah, that plot line was so unnecessary. I don't understand.
It's messy, too. It's messy. Because they're like... They love each other the whole movie. And then suddenly he's just like, fucking... I can't talk to my father!
I'm going to play video games about it.
Yeah, because you can't sleep at a hotel? What the fuck is happening?
And then the resolution is not, I love you, son. It's, I also love video games now.
That's his whole
arc.
It's
like, it like turns out your younger brother's good at video games. All of our problems have gone away. You're going to jail, motherfucker. You almost killed a man with your car.
Yeah.
You assaulted someone with a shovel. That's right.
Well,
yeah.
Like,
I mean,
he has a custody agreement where he never sees this kid ever, apparently.
Yeah. Well, I guess they're waiving that.
Yeah, I guess that's over at the end. Like, they never mention it, but he's like, you know what? You know that custody agreement I signed where I never see my son? I've rethought that because of video games. Thank you, Nintendo.
And that's the power of gaming.
Not only that, but I'm pretty sure it's mildly implied that they're going to get back together, right? Like Bateman.
I think so.
Bateman's out in the cold.
Yeah, he's like, all right, fuck.
I think Nintendo broke up that marriage.
Yeah, rightfully so. I admire the boldness of this movie also, trying to coin the term video head.
Yes.
As opposed to like gamer, you know, like they're like, there's so many of us, so many video heads. It's like, wow, it's really confident in its usage.
There is no great term though, I will admit, because like, working at IGN, the editorial team is constantly arguing about, so like they used to call, you know, in articles, they would refer to games because you try not to be redundant. So they'd be like, I'm sick of putting the word video game 100 times in every article. Mm-hmm. So there's like a lot of debate internally with like video game journalists of like, can you call them titles?
Amazing.
No, they're always games. Well, can you call them gamers? No, players is better. Users sounds more professional. There's like a lot of people very invested in what do you call someone who plays a lot of video games. I don't think there's a right answer. They all sound dumb.
Yeah, I think gamers has a bad rap now too, I feel like.
Gamers. Yeah.
Gamers. Epic gamers.
Well,
Nintendies.
And you wonder
Cigars.
why. Or, I mean, I don't really wonder because I've traced the whole thing my whole life. But some people wonder why, like, there's so much overlap between gamer culture and, you know, Gamergate and negative attitudes towards women or anyone who doesn't fit into, like, I'm basically Lucas. Yeah. Lucas is the epitome. Bad guy. And then you see a movie like this that's trying to sell video games, and at the final climax, there's 3 people and there's 2 we care about, and the third one is a girl gamer named like Maura Grissom, who they clearly cast to be like, she sucks. Look at her. She sucks.
Get her out of the way.
And you wonder why you can't sell, or at that time at least, you wonder why you don't sell games to girls. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, if we're gonna cast a girl gamer, we got to make sure we like put her in a hairstyle that's way too young for her and these like braided pigtails, and then we got to put these like huge glasses on her and a big shirt, and just make her look like she does not care that she's gonna be like on stage in front of hundreds of people.
Right, that's the truth. No, not even epic gamers look like Lucas. Lucas is too cool for epic gamers. You know what I mean? Like he's got too much fashion.
Yeah, he looks like one of the kids from the BK Kids Club, is what I thought.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So he's got his finger on the pulse, man. That's the thing with Lucas. He's so bad.
Yeah, he's bad.
He's just straight up bad. Yeah, it's surprising to me that like they are, because there is this like, you know, the idea about movies about like reflecting back to the community what the community is. There's some like salient moments like you're mentioning in terms of like the you know, portrayal of female gamers, and then there's also this like portrayal of like it's slightly gatekeepy to be like, this is like the unlock for like Beau Bridges and for Christian Slater is just, you got to just spend time with it. You know what I mean? That's another thing that is very conducive to like an ad for something. It's propaganda for gaming. And it's very interesting that they chose their characters. Like, I keep coming back to, this is not an ad, even though like you write it down on paper, it is entirely an ad. But like, why are all these themes and messages involved about like, they're trying to appeal, I think, to an audience that is like the audience that considers adults kind of a threat. You can't get what you want unless adults are there. That's obviously a childlike, you know, theme. But that the world is about lying and cheating and stealing to get help. Like, there's no help coming. You have to be on your own and survive literally in the wild before you talk to like parents, because they just don't get it. And this is exactly what we're telling gamers. This is what life is like. at this age. That's just a really weird like narrative to involve in like getting your entire community to rally and be like, yeah, this represents me. It's a bold move. I don't know how they thought this was a good idea.
Well, this is the high drama of it on top of the commercial. Yeah, like you said, it's like so unnecessary to put in when it could have been a fun little romp about video games, and just cut like half this cast, make it a lot cheaper, and have a lot more scenes of people playing video games.
Right, yeah. You could have done that.
It seems like they're
easily
trying to present a wide array of the types of people who they think should be playing games, almost as if they're like, look, it's not just your little brother or you or the cool kid Lucas down the block. It's also your older brother loves video games. Your dad loves video games. And I just find it so fascinating that they're like, not Haley, though. Also, the girl in the family, she drowned before the movie started. Like, let's not get into that. It's still so tunnel vision-y. And then, speaking of surviving in the wild, because we just covered one of P.T. Anderson's very first movies called Heart 8, the whole premise of which is that there's a bet in craps that's almost impossible to get, which is a Heart 8. And the whole guy's life in that movie revolves around, every once in a while going into the casino and betting a Heart 8, and he feels like there's some meaning to it if he ever gets it. Haley has this trucker named Spanky casually.
Let's talk about Spanky.
Casually get a Heart 8, which seems to render everything moot. Like, if Haley can do craps that well, they could make more than 50 grand easily. There's no need for all this shit. Go to the casino and use Spanky to just keep pushing craps.
They get caught. That's the problem. They're like, you can't do it with kids. Like, that's the thing that they kick him out for, is not that like, any pit boss would have immediately been like, you guys are talking to each other, and that's just not allowed. But it goes on for like 18 rounds where she like
yells
says
at
like,
him.
no, do this. No, this. And she's like a wizard, right?
Yeah, and
she's just so good
what
at
is
it.
like, I'm pretty sure a game of chance, right? She doesn't know where the dice is going to fall, but she knows.
No, it's literally guessing. Yeah.
That's true. Maybe the wizard refers to Haley's uncanny gambling ability.
She just understands
which is dark when you consider that her backstory is mom left because she has a gambling problem. I'm also really good at gambling.
Well, I mean, I think that was more... Yeah.
That's like her origin story. But was anyone else bothered by the fact that she called him the wizard when she was missing a huge opportunity to call him like a Game Boy? Like, Game Boy could have been the title of this.
Game Boy would have been better.
Videohead, Arcadian, something. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I wish it was called the Game Boy. That's just really cool.
He is the Game Boy. Like, why would you not call it the Game Boy?
Here's another thing about Spanky. He seems lovable, but they're really scamming him. Because when they walk out, Healy gives Spanky $10 $10 of the awarded $400, which he just had in his hands.
Yeah.
None of this would exist without him. He has an easy pitch to 50-50. If not more. Yeah. If not more, because he's like, fuck off. Like, you're getting this for free.
His prize is that he gets to be the only good adult in the entire movie.
Yeah, the truckers and the bikers are OG in this game. Or in this movie, sorry. They're like, so every other adult sucks except for bikers and truckers.
Well,
so
and the
kids,
cops, which is also such a classic vantage, is like, oh, when you're really in a scrape, though, you can always call the cops.
The cops will come to your
you.
aid, but it's like they have to. It's really only the bikers and the truckers that help kids when they ask for help. Just like I'm on hard times, which is also a good lesson to be telling kids.
I love, yeah. If you need someone to commit assault against a professional child snatcher, truckers will help you.
Yeah, that was his punishment. The police apparently did nothing. The truckers punched him in the face and then let him go. That's what happens if you molest a child, apparently, in the 80s. You get whacked, you go on your way.
Yeah, it's also weird that I guess it's just a makeup decision, but Putnam is shown after, we cut away after the truckers are told, yeah, this guy molested your child friend, Haley. And they go, oh, that ain't good. And then we cut and we see Putnam and he's got like a fat lip and a black eye. I'm like, really? His head wasn't caved in by a tire iron. I assumed he would be food for vultures at this point.
Yeah, I assumed that man is dead. When we cut away from that sequence, their opening punch is like this meaty punch that that has to be where like the black
damage
eye came
was done.
from.
Yeah,
so that way you assume as soon as it cuts away, it's just like 5 men standing in the road, just silently.
And going, all right, you can go now.
You may go now.
Let me back up my truck so you can get your car through. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
And there you go. Godspeed, sir.
He also,
don't do that again.
You guys noticed that when he was on the phone right after the police let him go, he's like, I touched her breast. She doesn't have a breast to touch. And I was like,
that. Oh,
why
boy.
would they put that line in?
Why? I don't know why they put it in. I don't.
That was a legal defense in 1989. That's all you had to
Your
say.
Honor.
I know it was done to make him more creepy, and they were like, it's funny if he, like, in denying it, actually says the words to make it sound like he's culpable.
Yeah,
that's what they're going for, but it's so like loosely surrounded around that it doesn't really translate, and makes me just think they put in a line where he thought he could get away with it.
There's just no way that job exists as a category of job, and everyone who is attracted to doing that work is not a pedophile. Like, I don't. That's all you would get, right? It's like we try to have Roblox or whatever, and they infiltrate. If there was a job called professional like child recoverer, anyone who applies for that job, I would just immediately arrest. Like, you can't want to do that. It's not allowed.
You show up for the job interview, the To Catch a Predator guy is already there.
He's already there. He's just
what
like,
did you want to? And he's like, hey,
I didn't need to see anything.
She's flat as an ironing board, man. And you're like, that just sounds worse.
Yeah.
You just sound worse now.
Really bad.
I mean, that's not even a confession, but I feel like we can use that in court. I feel like it.
Which I believe.
I love the.
I was
go
just
ahead.
saying, I think Jeff Bridges at one point says, you catch children for a living, like you should be arrested or something. And I'm like,
no, you should be shot.
That's what I thought.
He says
I thought he said that, and I
shot.
thought, I can't. I wrote down, he said you should be shot, and I'm like, I must have written that wrong. Because I was like, your wife hired him to do this. Or your ex-wife hired him to perform this service. Yeah. And he's like, so how dare you do your job? You should be shot. Which I agree with, but like in the fiction of the movie,
yeah, he's not wrong.
Like, I thought it was a good thing he was supposed to be doing. I don't know.
Right. It gives you real cognitive dissonance, because on the one hand, it seems like it's a simpler, naive time where the idea of child molestation's not even on the table. But then when she says he touched my breast, I was like, oh, so the people around are aware of the idea that a child could theoretically be molested. Okay.
That's right.
Like, yeah. I didn't even, I thought that wasn't even going to enter into it or something, or we were being too innocent for that. But that like throws so much into question. Well, if that was a concern, why did you hire this guy to do this? And then also set out to do his job yourself. It's weird. It's just so there can be a cross-country chase, right?
Yeah, that's
the real
it's a
answer.
Road movie, and it needs to end with a road movie like conclusion.
But it's so low stakes because it doesn't feel like that guy could catch them. Like, it doesn't feel like he has any chance. So I was never worried that he would catch them.
Yeah, he's also pretty shitty at his job. He does get his hands on him, and yeah, I mean, there's that the climax. Like, I assume people have seen it, but it was something that I think all kids, it's kid wish fulfillment, right? Mm-hmm. That I have always wanted to do that. When you go to like Universal Studios or anything that's like a scripted space like Disneyland, it's like all equally fascinating, right? Not just to experience the scripted part where it's like, oh, this feels like I'm in, Indiana Jones, where you really want to get behind the scenes, right? You want to like see like, how do they do that smoke? Oh, it's a smoke machine. That's so fucking rad. Like, as a kid, you love that shit. And that's where they like walk around, is they go at all the machinations of
the King Kong
like
thing,
the behind the scenes stuff. That's why I thought it was going to be like a lot more like revealing of a movie where it was going to inspect stuff, because they're literally they're wiping away the varnish. They're literally saying like, let's look at the other side of the things that we fall in love with. And it doesn't do that either. It's like a very walk up to the door with all these problems, reveal a lot of the inherent hypocrisy of how we do child rearing in this society, and then just walks away because it's an ad. I guess.
And then at the end, we play some video games. Everybody loves video games, right? Yeah.
Everyone loves it.
Even Putnam's like, I know that kid. This is all fine. I'm for this now.
That was the other weird thing. Is he's like, I know that kid. And it's like, you need to get the fuck out of here. You're gonna get arrested.
You've been beaten. Your car's destroyed. You're not gonna get paid. You've established the fact that you failed at your job, so you're not getting paid. Like,
no
what
one
is
likes
Putnam's gonna go home and eat a bullet? Like, there's nothing left for him in life.
He's gonna Richard Corey the shit.
His only joy is in getting some glory off of knowing the kid that won the video game tournament.
God.
And he's their enemy.
Yeah.
Like, his joy is that, at least I was beaten by the best. This kid.
You guys just don't understand the high you get from chasing kids, okay? You just don't understand.
You do it for the love of the game. That's right.
It really is addictive. It's a problem.
Also, neither here nor there, but highly unorthodox video game tournament. Video game esports is now the term, and it's a very well-established thing. And you'd never just do it based on raw score in 10 minutes on a new game no one's ever played before.
Hey, it was early days,
Not a very good test of skill.
Not a very good test of skill. There's a lot can happen, so it needs to be... Yeah, you're right. But I will say, they absolutely nailed the... so there's two guys that we meet at Video Armageddon, which is, I think, is the name of that thing. And there's two guys we meet who like work for it, and we get a real like deep inside of like, oh, this is who they are, which is the guy that like checks them in, who's just very good at his job. Very good at his job. He's just there to like
hype the kids
accept
up.
And he hypes them so up. He's like, yes, this is games, you know?
Ninja Gaiden!
And then the other guy is the announcer, who's just, obviously he's just doing it for a job, but he's really making a meal.
Oh my God, the energy of the announcer. I wrote down, that guy seems like he thinks he's in Mad Max. Like, if one of these kids loses, like, they're going to get eaten. Like, that's the energy he's bringing to the role.
He's going to weep. He will weep openly in front of everyone.
Yeah. And then the Jimmy Woods. And like, imagine the moment from his point of view when that kid inexplicably lowers down to the stage on an elevator, and he's just like, I don't know how that happened, but I accept it. I love it. Let's keep going.
You know he loves it because he's like, this is fucking awesome. Like, he's just buying his own brand. I fucking love it, and I think that esports, it kind of does have that energy, or they want that energy, but like it doesn't ever... It's always awkward because it's always also like streamed.
When you really watch esports, it's a person like silently staring hard and buttons clicking and everyone else silently watching. Like there's very rarely hype. There's big hype at the moment, the climactic moment when someone wins, everyone cheers. But before that, it's basically just a big room that's quiet with clicking noises, and then the announcer's trying to pump hype into that situation. It's not an enviable job, esports announcer. It's tough.
Did you guys ever see the or I guess hear the video of the it's like a Smash Brothers
Mega
tournament?
Man? Yeah.
Mega Man! Protector of the universe!
Lydia, have you seen that? We'll have to send you the link afterwards, because Abe's... You're spot on. Like, that is this guy. This guy is exactly that video. It's, how they'll release new Smash Brothers characters, and they'll be like, hey, this Pokemon's in Smash Brothers now. They did one where they announced that Mega Man is in the game now, and the announcer loses his shit in a way that just cannot be replicated, that you've got to see.
It's
where
beautiful.
He's like, it's Mega Man, the savior of the universe, the robot we all love. Mega Man.
He is 3 seconds from setting himself on fire.
Yeah, it's so good.
It is the most wholesome thing you'll experience. Anyway, everyone check it out.
Everyone check that out.
Oh, for sure, Google it. That sounds great.
Like and subscribe that guy. Yeah.
What I want to know is if there really was, because I did call helplines, 900 numbers, but it was always a recorded voice that would go like, I remember doing this for Willie Beamish. They'd be like,
there was people.
If you're in chapter 2, press 2. And then it's like, if you need to get the frog out of the jar, but you don't know how, press 1. And these were, for the younger gamers, epic gamers out there, that was your strategy guide, was like a 900 number with a recorded dial-in tape.
Right.
I find it hard to believe that there were ever sober adults working 9-to-5 jobs, sitting in a call center telling people, is that real?
If there were, it would
that
be
absolutely
expensive too, right? Like, I don't know how Haley afforded to sit on the phone with that guy for what seemed like a full day as he pulled out like folder after folder and just explained every video game to her.
Let's get to work.
Apparently 90 some games.
I doubt. I think it was more of like, okay, I remember having one experience where, because my brothers did it and I never got to do it, but then one time I was like alone and I was having problems with like Zelda 1 or something like that, and I actually did get a person. But I think they mostly just did it for like, they released the game, and so for the next month we're going to just pay a bunch of people, but then it'll just be one person.
Oh, and then when that game tails off, then
but obviously
you can't call that number anymore, or the number is new games now.
Yeah, it's just new games. Like I think it was just like they made it work for the time.
Yeah.
Because it would be too frustrating. They realized fairly early on, if the game is too hard, then their kids will just stop playing it. So they had to give them something.
I don't know.
But
now that's the whole deal.
That's the whole deal.
See Elden Ring. Everyone's like, yeah, punish me, game. I hate myself.
Right. We get the damn level in this from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. In my opinion,
a very, very hard game, if I recall.
A very hard game.
Yeah.
Very hard game. And even we see the wizard and all 4 turtles are like have low health. I thought that actually was true to life, because you see him playing in the damn level and you see they're all low life. And I thought that was like, wow, that's like a deep cut, or that wasn't something that it was like a meme that they made a joke of.
Right.
They were just like playing the game.
And
like whoever played the game and they got the footage was not doing well.
Right.
Because that's a very hard part to play. And then they were just like, yeah, okay, so put that in the movie. And then years later, it's a meme that the damn level is like one of the hardest levels in all gaming or whatever.
Yeah,
also, I don't. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say they don't always sync up. I didn't know this. My husband did. Like when he was talking about playing Zelda, the music they were playing, I guess, was from like the town, and he was pretending like he was playing against a monster of some kind, and he was like swinging his sword around. But my husband was like, "That's the music for the town. He's just like in the town, walking around, swinging his sword around."
They were pretty loose. The other thing you noticed too,
when he was like, I made it past the Crystal Palace and I'm fighting the Warthog. Yeah.
It's like, that's level 1, buddy. That's the other thing is like they show Contra like 4 times, all from the first level of Contra. Mm-hmm. They did no work into like advancing Contra. They were like, in the first level of Contra, there's this part where they jump on and you're like in the jungle, and then there's a part that you're like running toward the camera, like they just used all of that because it was so different back then. That's what's amazing to me, and why I love the time like capsule aspect of this movie.
No save states.
They really, really don't like know what gaming culture is and that it would become big. It's like, I don't know. There's something joyous about this movie in regards to that. Like, it makes you feel like they didn't know what they had, Like,
oh yeah,
they didn't know people were gonna nitpick it like they do now.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Did anyone else feel like? Also, we talked a little about scripted spaces, and like I've gone to Universal Studios many times, being an LA native for so long. Man, we got better at that. Like, did anyone else feel like Universal Studios seemed grim and depressing looking in this movie? Like, it was all concrete blocks. we've come a long way, baby, when it comes to like making a fanciful amusement park that feels fun to be in.
Well, I think they had to avoid any shots of like the good stuff because they clearly couldn't get any rights to anything. They just didn't have that kind of money, right? So like the only time we cut to like what they see looking off the tram is just like generic angry like big like tall monkey
big building or King Kong.
And they mentioned a movie on that
King
tour
Kong.
that I googled because I wanted to watch it. They said they were talking about a movie called Mayhem in Monte Carlo starring Pee Wee Herman and Zsa Zsa Gabor, and I was like, put that in my eyeballs right now. It does not exist.
That sounds no, unfortunately, yeah.
Okay.
Because that sounds like I don't know what that is, but I'm gonna watch it, and it's gonna be a whirlwind. I can already tell.
I was thrilled. I was immediately like Googling it, and the only place it exists is in the trivia section of IMDb for The Wizard. So,
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I'm trying to imagine a reboot of this movie, and I kind of would like it, like something that was very
it would be like
completely modernized and about very very accurate about how the video.
So if
games
it was
are
made
handled.
like last year or 2 years ago, like what would the games be? Like Fortnite would be what they start off playing.
Yeah, or Call of Duty or StarCraft or like the big esports games. Yeah, Apex Legends.
And what would
Valorant.
the reveal? What would the Super Mario 3 be? Like something like Elden Ring, I guess.
It'd be cool if it was Animal Crossing. If the kid was just really good at Animal Crossing.
I'm really good at this chill
Billy
game.
built like a really dope house for himself, and then everybody was in the audience just like, as he's moving his furniture around. They're like, oh, it's such good positioning of that couch.
Look out for the mushrooms.
It's just people losing their minds over him picking fruit up off the ground. It's like, oh, he tapped that A like the best of them. Yeah, there is I wouldn't want to see this. Now.
No,
I don't think they should remake this movie.
Right.
Definitely with none of the ad sentiment. But if we wanted to do truly what this movie is, which is like a darker look at the community, it would be a horrible movie to watch, because they would try to like push the agenda. And we all know that like what part of the identity, which of course they're trying to undo of a gamer, is that they're like edgelords,
Oh
like
yeah, Lucas showed us the way. He was a template for the modern
truly
gamer.
was the first memester. Yeah.
I guess I'm just saying esports is so big and established now. It feels like it makes more sense to do it now than it did back then.
There will be esport movie soon.
Yeah, an uplifting.
That will be we'll actually have the beats treated exactly like a normal sports movie.
Exactly. The triumph of esports. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's inevitable, and I think that they should have that W. Like esports is a real thing. Why not? But it's also just funny how we do this shill stuff.
As you say it, I'm getting more and more bored of the idea, though. So maybe I'll take it back.
Well, just think of the characters. That's all you have to do.
Right. And add some kind of weird family trauma to fuel it.
You lose the charm of them like video game grifting their way across the U.S. in like grimy little bars and bus stations and stuff where they're like tricking people into video gaming against the wizard. Like that's fun. I would miss that.
You game sharking people.
I kind of take it back. It immediately becomes a great movie if they just keep that aspect of it. Like it's like our reality right now, except that it is just assumed that young kids grift and go to the road to play video games. That's what they do. I would see that remake.
Baby grifter is a great trope. I love baby grifter.
Baby grifter is top notch.
Also, if you are a Super Mario Brothers 3 expert out there, I would love to know, does using the warp pipe and going several levels ahead give you a high score? I don't think it adds to your score.
It must.
Would it?
Or does killing a Goomba in World 4 count for more points than killing a Goomba in World 1?
There were bigger Goombas.
I'm hung up on
harder Goombas.
This is all unraveling before my eyes. All right. Is that the wizard? Does anyone have any more wizard thoughts? That's my we're wrapping up sigh.
Yeah,
Lydia, if you're not familiar.
Yeah, no, I figured I talked about Mayhem in Monte Carlo. That's the one thing I wanted to ask about, because if anyone knows about that movie, please tell me. Please reach out to me via any medium and tell me where I can find it.
If anyone ever took that ball and ran with it, we want to see the end result.
Is there fanfic? There's got to be fanfic of some kind.
Okay, that I don't want. Please don't email me your fanfic of Zsa Zsa Gabor and Pee Wee.
Email that to me. That can go to me, not Lydia. Man, we're such video heads, guys.
We're bad.
Yep, just 3 video heads signing off here. Another successful frame rate.
So bad.
Not the kind of movie we would naturally cover without impetus. So thank you again, Nerd Numbers. It was fun to discuss for sure. I don't think we got as highfalutin as we do on the Coen brothers or what have you. But yeah, it feels like a breath of fresh air. Much like this movie did. I was honestly more engaged than I thought, despite all the crazy shit that we just talked about.
The child assault.
Yeah. And of course, deep abiding thank you to Lydia Bugg. Thanks for being here. Where can people find more of your stuff online?
You can find me on Twitter at Lydia, or I write for 1-900hotdog.com, which I'm sure you guys have had Sean and Brockway on here before. It's
yeah, big fans.
It's their website. I'm a weekly columnist, so once a week I put up an article, and it's great, and you should check it out.
I bought some Steve Buscemi cookie cutters thanks to your article, so thank you.
You found them. Wow, because they were sold out when I looked.
Damn,
I'm dying to know how that goes.
Hot
Please
dog
tell me
indeed.
how Steve Buscemi it comes out, because I'm like, I don't know if that's going to work or not.
I have a Buscemi wholesaler guy.
Okay.
I'm connected in that realm.
It's a problem.
It's a real problem.
He's got a whole storage facility full of Buscemis.
Buscemi.
Buscemi.
Write in. Let us know.
Let us know. Let us know about the 2 things we asked.
Till then, we'll be back with more frame rates, I guess, or whatever we decide to put out next.
I think on this channel we just do whatever the heck we want.
That's right.
We put out. We're maniacs with podcasts. Mm-hmm. We have so many podcasts, you can't even keep track of them.
But you can find them all over at patreon.com/smallbeans, or on your podcasting app, just search for Small Beans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now an outro that says that.
This has been a Small Beans endeavor. We're a bunch of pals who make podcasts, sketches, music, web series, and movies. The Beans always have new ideas percolating, so make sure to check us out at patreon.com/smallbeans. That's patreon.com/smallbeans, where you can browse all of our current and past content, see what we've got planned in the future, and learn how your support can help the Small Beans grow into huge, giant monster beans. If you enjoyed this content module, please like, rate, subscribe, or tell a friend about us. We love you!